And today we're going to ink. I want to recommend jewelry box, jewelry display box. This is a watch box. Initially I got it for bikes because it's a great size, perfect size for Space Marine bikes. And we're going to put 5, 6, 7, 8 drops of ink in our tiny dish. And we should immediately see a darkening and some definition in these guys if I've let them dry properly. But as soon as we put the dark wash on, they will go into the ugly phase, and we will have to go in and pick out some colors again. And of course, everything will need a dry brush, and we can go through and actually give the whole thing a wash, not just the red bits. We will give a red or a green wash. Next, we want to and that will be the fun part, I think, is the dry brushing. Oops. Well, he might have been a little wet still. But it's a fairly thin ink wash. How's that look over on the white? Pretty perfect. Just bringing out those details. That is so ugly. He's gorgeous. As we put the ink in, it's a watered down ink. So we don't want to go too thick at all. Just to get in there, give some definition to the 3D-ness. And we're just slapping it on because we're going to bring out more. We're going to bring out the real red when we do the dry brushing. So just want to go give him a complete cover. There's a couple of supports there that I left on because it's like they look like flying buttresses. So I'm gonna don't feel like taking them off. If we ever do a nice set, we'll take a little bit more care with all of that. We had so much trouble with our bases breaking that I thought, you know, I've been wanting to try this for a while of what if we have a little planet, a stylized planet. And so we have our, we're going to call it a hive world. And hopefully, what I think would be nice if we can somehow make it look nighttime here in the back. So that's why it is shaded the way that it is. A little bit lighter in planet is a little bit lighter gray than the back or the black that we're putting on top of it. It's a bit messy. We're going to clean that up later. Just want to make sure that we get all that detail just showing up a little bit. There we go. And it's supposed to be just a generic planet. It looks a little bit too much like Earth, but nobody will notice. Nobody will mind. It would be a good idea to go over with a bit of a brown wash. So it's not just black, but it's not a bad first pass on him. Put him down a little carefully. Let's see if we can, just a little bit of wash on the front of him to bring out that color. Again, I recommend watch display case. I don't have 5 watches, but 6 spaces in the watch display case, which is why I thought it'd be perfect for bikes. And it really works well for bikes. I don't have any bikes at the moment. I got a few that I'm working on, but I'd probably work harder on them if I had a game, which I don't have a game to go to. So it's just painting bikes for fun. My bikes are, I want them to look like Bretonian knights is the goal there. And what's the goal for these ships? Figuring out how to paint them, because I am flying by the seat of my pants. No clear idea of where we're going to do or where we're going with them. There we go. The nice thing about the ink is that it dries nice and quick. It dries a lot faster than the paint. And just make sure we get a little bit of definition there in the front. And move on. So we're just going very quickly. Just giving this some definition. Not too much, of course. Just a little bit. And unlike every other video, nothing's broken so far, knock wood. And I think we're going to need to add a bit more ink to another pile of water. It's not dark, not too dark. It's not very thick. And it is just going to really bring out our details on our little planet here, which is a much better base than the flight stands that we were using, which were just too snappy. Here's that hydrophobic problem with Games Workshop's white primer, in my opinion. I just feel that it just doesn't like water over it. So it's just receding and gathering. It gathers well because of that, but the coverage feels iffy to me. I'm just laying this on thick because we are bringing out the details, and we will go in later and fine tune it. But that's not so bad. That isn't so bad. We want to make sure that we're covering everything, especially these bits here that I left some supports on, but we can pop those off. Gives us much better access to the model there. Painting the fleet all at once to give it, I'm hoping that will mean that they look like they belong together. They're all a little different. I've never been able to paint an entire army to look exactly the same, but then I say that's my style. That is, everything's just a little bit sloppy. I mean different, but I'm a bit of a sloppy painter. I think maybe that's where I'm weakest, is in the actual painting, because I never learned to shade or blend. That's because Photoshop gave me an undo button and stretching, so I never learned my proportions because I could always go into Photoshop and edit that. All right, one more little frigate here. Just slapping in a lot of the black, as thin as possible, and we will bring everything back out. With the dry brush, we'll pick out those details nicely. As long as we can see that there are broadside guns on the side. The larger ones, larger ships are a bit easier to paint, but they have so much detail that there's not a solid surface, a solid flat. I think right here, the top of the hull is the only part that's a very solid flat surface. It's another lovely 80-degree day here south of Atlanta. There we go. That is turning out well. It just needs that dry brush to get some pigment, get some red, not the pink, but some red pigment on the tops of things. Everything that we're doing a wash with, the wash wants to recede into the recesses. And that's why we'll dry brush and wash. And I'm leaving the bottoms pretty much undetailed, nothing going on there. Want to try and preserve our shading as much as possible, so we don't want to have too much of the wash coming in and puddling in areas. In some places we want it to puddle, but not everywhere. How are we doing over here? City use a little bit more. There we go. Flight stands. Never liked them, but it's traditional to have a flight stand for spaceships. It takes me back to the Starfleet battles in the FASA version of Starship Combat. Those were annoying flight sticks. Those were annoying ships to make, and because the nacelles are so spindly, and we were using lead back then for the miniatures, and everything would be very, very bend very easily. And look, nothing broke. So we're very much happy. We're happier with this design than with the old Indomitable Reason design. We're going back to it. And what do you do as soon as you have one fleet in your possessions? You need a second fleet. You know, they need somebody to fight. So I've started working with everything I've learned from these guys. I've started working on a more U.S. themed fleet with a Enterprise and an Iowa, but all space versions. So it should fit. It shouldn't look too bad going up against the Warhammer fleet here.